Hey everyone, Brian Von VA here, back at it again, bringing you another set of D&D stories, and today we're covering Can a DM Cheat at D&D Part 1? In normal speech, cheating doesn't mean just not following the rules, it means acting dishonestly or unfairly in order to gain an advantage. So, yes, a DM can cheat if they see the game as a competition between them and the players. Now, most DMs obviously don't see the game that way, though, and good DMs rarely do. They see their role as facilitator of the entertainment. They're not there to compete with the players, because what would the point be? If they were, they could simply design a scenario the players can't possibly win in. Instead, the goal is to challenge the players enough that there is a real risk of failure, while at the same time making it so that failure is never so bad that the players stop being invested in the game and having fun. Now, it's okay to make the players fail at a goal, if there's still some way for them to move forward. It doesn't necessarily have to be forward towards the same goal, but they need to see their characters as able to accomplish some sort of meaningful goal. Maybe you saved the townsfolk, but the village gets squashed. Maybe most of the townsfolk get killed, but you're able to avenge them and rescue a few survivors. Maybe the villain gets away with the money, but now you know his name and have a real chance of tracking him down. Thus, a DM who runs the game properly never cheats, because anytime they choose not to follow the rules, they're doing so in order to further the real goal of the game, which is to provide a fun, emotionally rewarding experience for the players. Now, you also get players who see the game as, well, a competition, and see setbacks not as a way to set things up for the eventual victories will be more sweet, but as losses. In such a case, the player may feel that the DM is actually cheating. Now, the problem, however, is that there's a disagreement about the goals of the game. If that disagreement can't be resolved, then the player may need to find another game to play in, or the DM might need to if most of the group disagrees. Players can also disagree about the goals of the game with other players, and therefore disagree on whether a player is cheating, but the question was about DMs. Now, on the other hand, DMs are human too. Sometimes we get too attached to a particular NPC and wind up trying to make them win. In that case, the GM may be cheating by either interpreting rules unfairly or by being dishonest with the players. Both elements are needed for cheating, though there needs to be an advantage being sought and unfair or dishonest dealing in order to attain it. Sometimes as a GM, you have to step back out of character and talk to the players. Watch for signs that your players are getting frustrated. If they are, then talk to them. I've had players sometimes tell me no, and it's fine, they're just playing in character. The player is having fun, but the character is frustrated. That's great. If the players are actually getting frustrated, though, then something's going wrong. Addendum. It should be noted as well that different groups may have different ideas of fun. I've DM'd for groups that didn't handle frustration very well, where a single major setback would, well, ruin the session for them. I've also DM'd for groups who stopped finding things fun when they didn't get setbacks. It was just too easy for them. Find your group's style of play. If you really want to do a great job, find the individual styles of play of your players and try to appeal to each of them. You probably can't do it all at once, but if you can make each session special for one person while avoiding frustrating anyone, people will love you as a GM. Short answer. No. We have a stark contrast. The first guy, yes. The other guy, no. Longer and somewhat more convoluted answer. Since the DM is the final arbiter of all events in his or her campaign, the only manner in which he or she could even arguably be accused of cheating and have that charge possess some legitimacy would be to, at some point before or during the game, voluntarily agree on some limitations, such as their power, and then break that agreement. That, and only that, may legitimately be considered illegal or unjust. Now, I speculate that most Quarians won't like this, and yes, I say Quarians or Quarians, but here goes. Even that might not stick. He or she could argue that since the DM's power is absolute, that any agreed upon restraint was purely voluntary, non-binding upon him or her, while completely so on the players, and contingent only upon his or her desire to keep the agreement for a time. When you're functionally omnipotent and your honor is changeable, you can choose to give lip service for the purpose of making your players happy and giving them the illusion of agency that no D&D player actually has. See, no matter the protestations to the contrary, the DM is neither just one bishop in a council, nor is he or she even primus inter pares, despite the egalitarian bullshit favored by postmodern players who cannot accept not having any authority even when they shouldn't. He or she is at the very least Pontifex Maximus and can revive ex cathedra from a compartment in the DM toolkit if it's ever required. More properly, he or she is an autocrat, whether benevolent and beloved despot or feared and hated tyrant, is reliant on his or her ability to wield power without creating resentment. Fudging or outright ignoring die rolls announcing, "Because I said so and the discussion is over," furiously declaring, "Rocks fall, you die," invoking Rule 0 at will or whim, any and all of these are entirely in the DM's purview. This is not my opinion, it is an incontrovertible fact. Now, is a DM who does these things without restraint and while rubbing the players' faces in it, many, if not most cases, a complete asshat? Sure is. Brutalizing your players is a certain path to having no players, and rightly so. They have the ultimate veto to get up, tell you to go fuck yourself, and find a game run by a DM that they don't want to see beaten and bruised for ruining their fun. The social contract applies. The DM does his or her level best to facilitate a great time for all participants. Educates accordingly to that purpose. Note that I did not type fairly and or impartially because that's bullshit too and doesn't genuinely exist anyway, and adjust his or her style to both accommodate the unhappy and restrain the uncooperative if within reason possible. I would never have signed the Magna Carta. Would my nobles have likely killed me? I imagine they would have, but I would have died unbowed. And they would eventually have gone before the ultimate judge to explain why they thought their best option was to kill their anointed king. Good luck with that. On the other hand, unlike John Lackland, I would never have driven them to wanting a Magna Carta in the first place, because that means I was so ham-handled and brutish that I proved unworthy of the title in the first place. Same principle with DMs. The best ones make Machiavelli proud. So the big fat TLDL with this one is simply put, with all the eloquence and elegance of this person's literary abilities aside, no, a DM cannot cheat because the DM has ultimate power. That is BS in itself. No, not really. Imagine the DM as the referee, the coach, and all of the league's managers all rolled into one, and add to the mix a metaphor. The DM is also the storyteller. A DM can't cheat because what the DM says is law. Now, of course, the DM can ruin the game, and very often does, but that's about it. Anything goes in D&D and every other RPG I've played. It just has to work that way. Now, do DMs fudge things all the time? In fact, a DM who never fudges a roll ever is probably not doing a good job because the dice have no respect whatsoever for dynamic tension, or a heroic climax, or decent resolution. But even then, it can ruin a game very quickly to do it other than when absolutely necessary, and it should never be known when you fudge things. At least I would never tell anyone. Why ruin the suspense for them? I also think no DM should ever fudge a player's dice rolls, or force a character to take an action when she or he is not being controlled by in-game forces. And even then, there should be saving throws, many saving throws. A DM shouldn't be so afraid to let characters die, nor be vengeful and kill characters off at a whim. The potential of losing a character is important, for keeping players engaged. But if everyone's 10th level character dies in the same battle, it's probably going to ruin it for everyone. Unless you can make a TPK, total party kill, a great conclusion to a campaign, or punishment for deliberately stupid actions, like attacking a demigod. Well, when it comes down to it, that's the point of a GM. The players could play the rules as written without a GM, and computerized versions of the games do so. But the purpose of a human game master is that he can make decisions a computer cannot. No programmer can think of everything. If a player wants to climb a wall and the programmer didn't include that function, he can't do it. But if a tabletop player wants to climb a wall and the writer forgot to include rules for climbing, the GM can say, "Hey, sure, that makes sense, high five." Most games include guidelines, usually in the introduction, to state that the GM and the players are welcome to modify the game to their own needs. One of the biggest cliches and dreads of tabletop role-playing is going off the rails. Yet, tabletop encourages that in a way computer gaming cannot. The computer is bound to react in very specific ways, but of course, a real-life GM is not. You can't break the rules of a computer game, but you can appeal to the GM, and because he is your friend, or should be, he can support your intention in any number of ways depending on his own interpretation of the rules, the mood at the table, or even the time of day. Like dice, it adds a sometimes random and always human touch to the game. And it also allows the GM to put his own stamp on the game, making it more enjoyable for himself, as well as the players. Okay, what you people can't see is that the script actually has this bolded. The best DMs cheat all the time. The rulebook for D&D is immense. It takes 3 full volumes to cover all the rules for players, dungeon masters, and to provide a decent selection of monsters. Nobody can memorize all that. When I DM, I cheat all the time. If I didn't, the game would grind to a halt while we all cross-check the rules with whatever new spell or action is being attempted. That isn't fun. For example, instead of learning all the details of underwater combat, I largely let those encounters play like they do on land. I also cheat on my rolls sometimes for the sake of the story. If my player has an unconventional idea that would make for an awesome moment in our campaign, I will often fudge on the dice roll to let it happen, unless they roll extremely poorly. So yes, a DM can and should cheat. Also, do note, the Pathfinder books, they're all condensed into one book and it's cheaper, so go get it. Yeah, but not through normal means. Now, many rulebooks will actively advise the DM fudging the dice rolls when the wrong thing happens by the rules. I'm very much a, once you roll, let the dice fall where they will DM. And if the dice consistently give results I don't like, I find another system. But if the rule books tell the DM to do it, then fudging clearly isn't cheating. That doesn't mean there's no way of cheating, of course. DMs need to stay on their side of the line. The characters belong to the players, and if the DM takes them over, the DM is cheating. Also, if the DM forces them to follow the plot or play a second fiddle to the NPCs or DMPC, most of the time that's abuse of power and effectively cheating. The DM is in complete control of the game and the rules for that matter. Therefore, a DM cannot technically cheat. I straight up told my group while we were going over setup why I was using a DM screen. Oh, sure, they complained, but they also tried to rob a bunch of houses and expected not to be caught. Define cheating. Is it going against the rules? The rules for D&D cannot possibly cover every scenario, especially when playing custom adventures. Therefore, the DM has to make choices to maintain the game. Even when the DM is going against the rules written in the rulebook, specific trumps general. The DM cannot technically cheat, but they can make the game less fun by doing a whole lot of thingies. Not only can they, but most of them do all the same. After a random encounter, I roll for treasure. If something massively overpowered shows up, I may select something a bit more in balance. Alternatively, I may throw a couple of potions that might come in really handy in the next encounter if the party is really hurting. The DM is, well, literally, the master of all the events in the game. The purpose of the game is to have fun, so the DM needs to balance challenge and reward. And you can't always do that by following the rules as if everything was black and white. Some things are most definitely chromatic. Now, if a DM cheats too much in either direction, the players will likely not be having fun, and they'll generally stop playing. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here, checking in after the vid. Please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and of course leave a comment down below letting us know, can a DM cheat in D&D? What's your thoughts on it? We want to know, and it might make it into a video in the future, so tell us, teach us. And as always, I love you all. Please make sure that you're taking good care of yourselves out there. Stay hydrated, stay happy, and stay healthy. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.